All right, we will get started now, and I am going to just mute everyone so that we don't have any background noise. So, all right. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. My name's Liz Cadle, and I'm the Director of Alumni Programs for Wyoming Seminary, as well as a 2005 graduate. And tonight is our first Sem Talk of the 2023-2024 school year. And we're excited to have Mike McGlynn here, who is our Director of Climate Science and Sustainability Concentration, along with 5 students to tell you about our program that they've been working with for the past few years. So now, first to speak will be Mike McGlynn.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. I have the privilege of representing and leading the Climate Science and Sustainability concentration here. It's one of 3 academic concentrations that we offer, and one of the most amazing things about these types of programs is that we let the students take a really great deep dive into things that they're already interested in, and we help mentor them into being experts and leaders and movers and shakers, even in high school. So they commit to a 3 to 4 year program where they do intensive work, and at the end of that they culminate their work with a capstone project as well as with a portfolio that includes all of the work that they've done throughout. The Climate Science and Sustainability program is unique because it really runs the gamut of a lot of different topics, because everyone is connected through, the planet that we happen to live on, and everyone is sustained by the planet. So this could be topics from human health. It could be studying the environment in a scientific way, such as acid mine runoff. It could be thinking about clean water and drinking issues all over the world. But tonight you're going to hear from 5 of our students who are in varying stages of the climate science and sustainability program. We also offer academic classes within the topic. I teach Climate Science 1, 2, and then also Industry and Climate, which is our climate change series of classes. And some of our students are enrolled in that, as well as our Earth and Space and Atmospheric Science classes. So I'd like to start today off with a highlight that was featured on a docu-series with 2 of the girls you'll hear from tonight. Turnaround Films came down from Boston. They're doing a whole series on climate change and what that looks like and how the education is working with that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and without further ado, here we go. Hold on.
A lot of times, younger people are handed problems that developed in previous generations. Students often have these anxieties related to things that they think are very difficult to change. Learning about what they can do at a younger age gives them the ability to enact change themselves.
The Susquehanna River flows through the Wyoming Valley in northeastern Pennsylvania. In June 1972, a massive flood precipitated by Hurricane Agnes swept through the region and battered Wilkes-Barre, Kingston, Forty-Fort, and other towns that sit on the river. The cities recovered from one of the worst natural disasters in American history. Recovery from man-made disasters may take more time. More than a century of anthracite coal mining and burning took a heavy toll on the local environment and is a driver of climate change. Wyoming Seminary, a private school in Kingston, has created a program to energize their students to take action on new problems, including climate change.
So should I say temperature changes?
Or fluctuations. What do you think is going to sit better with your audience?
We're trying to do 12 to 14-year-olds.
So changes is so much better. Yeah, there you go.
That's it. With the Climate Science and Sustainability program, we started looking at the students who were currently working in environmentalism and thought about what it might be like for them to work with each other and accept feedback from each other and have faculty guiding them along the way. As people give you feedback.
Students can do individual deep dives into any environmental problem that grabs them.
Okay, great.
But it also brings them together to do workshops with a real-world goal.
So, composting, what is it?
you know a topic if you can teach it.
How do we use it?
We've challenged our students to go into a topic, gain some expertise in that, and then share it out with the community.
So I tried to think of some things that would affect them personally to like kind of reel them in and like relate it to them. I was just excited about the idea of teaching composting to middle schoolers who have no idea about it.
If you have, I mean, maybe not that setup, but if you have a bin and you're like, what do you think this could be used for?
It's totally different to be the one who is taught and the one who teaches. When you absorb knowledge, you don't realize what your teacher has to do to prepare for that. And you don't realize the lesson plans they have to make. You kind of just figure they come in and they teach stuff and they know stuff. We're going to expand upon what they can actually do to help, because a lot of the time you feel like, oh, climate change is so big. What can I do to help as like me as a middle schooler? So we're going to have them become more waste conscious, which is like composting, but also recycling.
We got to pick the information we present. We got to pick how we presented the information, and we get to pick the age of the students coming. So it's a lot more freedom, and it gives us a lot more creativity with the project.
I think the idea is if you can inspire those kids to take home what they're learning and then try to make that happen at home.
Of course, the tumult of school and student schedules can shake up even the best laid plans. The first composting workshop would now be for the 4th grade class at the lower school in 44 down the street. And they would open the second workshop to the public.
We were expecting 8th graders, and today is just 4th graders, which hopefully won't be too much of a difference.
Your bins are here,
Yeah.
so this one is open and ready to go. You can make it any size you want,
Yeah.
which is one of the nice things about it.
You want to smell it? It really just smells like dirt. There's worms in my compost. I am nervous today to talk to the actual kids, but they're pretty excited. So we're going to be talking about composting.
Does anyone here know what composting is already?
If you guys like rotten food, don't throw it away. Take it, put it in a composter, and then insects come and eat the food. So none of the food goes to waste.
You guys kind of hit all the points. Okay. Along with food scraps, it can also be things like coffee grounds and like pieces of paper. You can put the fertilizer or soil into your garden or donate to a local garden so that it can help their plants grow better. All right.
This is the game.
Time.
It's sorting into the 3 piles: compost, recycle, and trash can. Which would go in which?
And if you guys finish the fastest,
You'll get a prize.
Not just that. Literally there. You're not. Yeah.
one type of paper can go on the compost.
Yeah, that's the hint. One type of paper goes in the compost and one goes in the recycling.
Remember, things that like may look like paper sometimes have plastic on them, so just be careful of that.
This is pretty much what we learned during our game.
Are there any places where you felt like you got a little bit stuck or you felt like you got off topic or anything like that?
We were timid in the beginning because we didn't know how they would react. And then they reacted well. And so we got better from there. And then once they got to the game, they were really excited. So I feel like after that, we were kind of like cruising.
One of the things that I absolutely love about the upper school students teaching the lower school students is it pushes the upper school students to be the best that they can be. What I really like about the lower school students is that they're inspired by the upper school students, that they are motivated and ready and empowered and know why they should do something like composting at home. You have a community of learners of all different age levels and abilities, and we're all learning something together. I think tomorrow is going to feel more streamlined because like today was in some ways a little bit of a warm up. You're not going to get caught in the same exact spots.
Organic materials like food scraps, maybe paper, things like that.
Oh, that's a recycle.
They won't allow paper towels. I
Yeah.
know that.
I kind of want to do it again now.
I know, it's kind of fun.
For like all the classes at the lower school. I'm like, let's just stay here forever.
All right, well, great. Hopefully that gave you a good piece of insight into what these students are capable of doing. They often do a service project. Sometimes it could be a research project on something like climate change or some local impact of climate change. But tonight you're going to hear from 5 of our wonderful candidates for completing the program. First up, we're going to have Hayden, who is going to talk about his journey through CSS so far, as well as his potential capstone in green architecture. So I'm going to hand it over to Hayden.
Alrighty, so hello everyone. Let me just share my screen. All right, can everybody see it? Alrighty, so I am a current junior at Wyoming Seminary, and I am involved in the CSS program as well as the series of climate change classes led by Mr. McGlynn. So far, I've had 2 summer projects. My first summer project was Hayden's Garden to Table restaurant, in which I built a garden with sustainable water features. And then I grew the food in the garden, which was completely organic. And I also made menus and many other factors, which I then served to my community. So to present it in a more, I guess, familiar way, I made a restaurant about it. So creating this online website allowed me to deal with graphic design as well as producing something that I'm really passionate about. So here I am just clicking through some of the tabs. So I learned about what a rain barrel is and why it's important, the difference between compost and vermiculite, the mission to my restaurant, as well as the major factors of climate change represented around the world, but also in my state of Maryland. And then I continued with the How Can You Help tab, as well as the process it took for me to build this garden and this complete restaurant. And then I have today's menu, which I made out of sustainable paper. And then I also have a YouTube video about that. So if you want to watch that, feel free. And then again, just today's ingredients of what I planted and harvested in the garden. So, and then my next summer project was 44 versus Chestertown. So for my freshman and sophomore year, I was a boarder at Wyoming Seminary. And then my junior year now, I moved to the local town of 44. So I compared the 2 areas, as Chestertown is a small town on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay. So it's super eco-conscious, and I worked with a lot of organizations such as Sultana Education Foundation, CBEC, and took class trips as well as like personal interest trips to Echo Hill. And I compared that to 44, which has a similar, I guess, geographical location and with water nearby. Oh, sorry. And for the project, I compared air quality, water, turbidity. So I kind of compared the 2 areas, as it's important to me to know the factors of where I'm going to be living. So my STEM journey. So the CSS program has been wonderful since my end of freshman / beginning of sophomore year. So it's kind of like a college class structure, in my opinion. So it's very limited students, one-on-one with the professor, and I've really enjoyed Mr. McGlynn. And then like the CSS program allows for expansive curiosities and opportunities, which I'm super happy about because I like to be independent, but yet creative, but also rely and have input from others. So I've really liked that about the program. And then the involvement with the community. So I've liked working in the field with people who are specialists, and I'm hoping to do more of that. And then the learning and teaching aspect, not only learning from Mr. McGlynn, but I'm learning from the community and from my classmates. And then as for the climate change classes, so I'm currently in climate change 2, and the curriculum and experience have really stood out to me, as the curriculum is kind of open base with, I would say, a good amount of research, but I've really enjoyed that, especially creating the lab notebook and its relationship to the SEM community with tree plantings and the environmental club and all the fun activities we have planned. So to further about the climate change classes is the symbiotic relationship. I know Mr. McGlynn likes that term. So I'm not only learning from him, but he's learning from me, and I'm learning from my classmates who are also learning from me. So I've really liked that aspect of it, of getting multiple opinions and different ideas. And then one of the heavy things we've talked about is the opinion versus fact. So climate change is real. There is evidence, and there are facts that prove it against what people's opinions have to say. So moving on, back to CSS and future ideas with my capstone. I'm super into green architecture, especially hospitality slash home design. So my dream is to have like a hotel business that's completely sustainable around the world. So this, I guess, is my inspiration from the waterfront rentals. So I help my parents run 3 Airbnbs in Maryland, which we've completely decked out with, I guess, sustainable materials such as floors. We've made sure like there's clean water and everything, and all the products we use to clean the rentals are completely natural. So the interior design using natural materials and inspirations, which is, I guess, a little bit of biomimicry. I've really enjoyed that aspect of not only designing and producing architecture, but furniture design, and I guess some parts of decor. So recently, like I said, I've moved here, so we've done construction to my house. Um, and we redid the bathroom, and I worked with a contractor who was with like a family friend of how can we make the bathroom like the most environmentally friendly, and what aspects of that are made possible. So if we had to import materials all the way from California, um, that were eco-friendly but also had a great look to them, and then this ties into Vanderbilt and then the human-centric design. So my mom's currently getting her doctorate at Vanderbilt, and I've gone with her a couple times, 2 or 3 times actually, and I've sat in on the classes, and they're very similar to the CSS program and the climate change classes. And my mom talked to me about like the human-centered design, HCD. And that really stuck out to me as we're the ones living on the planet, so we need to know how to control it. So taking all of these aspects, my, I guess, dream capstone project and what I'm working on to achieve is there's a lot, I would say maybe 4 or 5 acres, somewhere around there, maybe a little less, across from the Nesbitt Stadium that Sem owns. And I'm hoping to, like, I know Sem's planning on putting a building or something there. So I want to be a part of creating that for the community and tying it in with green architecture. So if there is a building there, how can we make it sustainable for the campus, but also benefit the community? So thank you for your time. And I don't know if we're going to do questions now or at the end.
Yeah, we'll do questions at the end. Yep. Thank you, Hayden.
Yep.
And next up, we have Trinity.
Hi everyone, as you heard, I'm Trinity. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my capstone project, which is going to be centered around calculating SEM's carbon footprint. So a little background on what got me started into this project. When I started the program my sophomore year, I'm now a senior, I started off with some research into the effects of greenhouse gases on organisms in the ocean. And as I looked more into that, I turned my attention for a little bit to raising funds for a nonprofit that takes carbon out of the atmosphere, in place, kind of like calculating your carbon footprint and then making up for that. And so when I was looking for what I wanted to focus my capstone project on, I decided this is like the perfect way to incorporate everything I've done so far and continue and make a bigger impact on what I would like to do in the CSS program. So to get started, obviously you have to identify the sources of what SEM emits. The basic ones that I came up with were transportation, heating, electricity, and food, like food waste and production and things like that. So when gathering the data, I reached out to our business office and collected some bills. So the electricity bills, the fuel bills, we use natural gas, oil, and then we have gasoline for our like fleet vehicles. And then I'm planning to gather data on the independent travel of our students. So like the car rides from their homes to school and then the plane rides for the international students. And then I also plan to gather data from our food service on our food waste. So after all the data is gathered, Mr. McGlynn and I reached out to, reached out to this organization, the Sustainability Indicator Management and Analysis Platform. And basically what they do is they take all of your data, and once you compile it into the right like spreadsheets and format that they want it in, they'll analyze all of your emissions and calculate your footprint, so it's easier for you to go about deciding how to reduce that and things like that. So they, including analyzing our footprint, they'll track and help us improve our campus sustainability, which is obviously the end goal. So the specific data we're using, CMAP has 3 scopes of data, and specifically we're interested in scopes 1 and 2. So scope 1 is energy from buildings and from fleet vehicles that belong to the school. And then scope 2 is like independent transportation, so like our students' cars and their plane rides, and then the food production from our cafeteria. And these are screenshots taken from CMAP's website, so to show you guys the detail in which they calculate all of our emissions and the data they require. And finally, when we have our data and we have our results, the end goal for me is to formulate a plan to reduce SEM's emissions. So a few ideas on that right now that I have are reducing fuel waste. So when Mr. McGlynn and I went to talk to the business office about our bills, we learned that we have like boilers in Sprague that distribute the heat to different buildings, but they do that through tunnels underground. So the steam from those tunnels escapes while they're being transported to other buildings, and that wastes a lot of the energy and wastes like our money and stuff like that as well. So I know Mr. Turud in the business office said they were trying to get separate boilers for each building, which I think would be really helpful. Next, purchasing green energy or electric vehicles. So I know they're like quite expensive buys, but I think coming up with a plan wouldn't hurt. And lastly, reducing food waste and expanding our composting program, which I know CSS and the Environmental Club have done a lot on, but I think reducing the food waste that's going to landfills would also really help. So that's my plan for my capstone project and the impact I want to make on SEM through doing this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Trinity. Next up, we have Abby.
Hi, let me screen share real quick. Okay, I think that worked.
Yeah, Abby, 1 second. Can you just remove that for a second? Because I'm trying to, oh, never mind. You can go on. I'm trying to find you. There you are. Okay.
So, hi, I'm Abby Williams, and I am currently a senior, and I'm going to talk about my work with ocean conservation and education through CSS. Oh, oops. Okay. So I didn't join CSS actually until junior year, so that was last fall. But before that, I've always been involved. I've been very like interested in the sciences, so I've been doubled up in sciences throughout my 4 years at STEM. And last year, I actually took the climate change class with Mr. McGlynn, and it was by far like my favorite class that I've ever taken at SEM. I learned so much important information. It was just like really eye-opening. And right now I'm actually in a marine biology course, which is really fun. But with CSS as a whole, it has allowed me to like I've had so many experiences that I would be able to have otherwise, or like at least not as frequently. There's always like a tree planting, or there's a lecture going on, and I don't know, I really gained a lot from CSS. When I initially joined, I knew that I wanted to do something regarding the oceans. I've always been very passionate. So as I joined, I knew I wanted to do something talking about coral bleaching or ocean acidification, or even just like plastic and pollution in the ocean. And then that fall, I went to the Cayman Islands with my family for Thanksgiving break. And when I was there, I reached out to a local marine biologist, and I ended up, the two of us, we went to a few sites on the reef and we scuba dived, and he showed me coral bleaching disease like up front, and it was like my first time like seeing it like that close. So after that, I was pretty set on continuing this journey, especially for CSS and just like in the future. And those two pictures were actually from the Caymans that I collected. And then that leads into what I did this summer in Australia. I don't know how to move. Okay. So this summer I went to Australia and I took part in a marine conservation project on the Great Barrier Reef. I was in the northern part of Australia in like Queensland, and I worked with an organization called Oceans to Earth, and their mission is to promote environmental sustainability and accountability for our impact on the environment. So I worked, it was an international volunteer program. I was the youngest one there, but I worked with like 20 volunteers from all over the world. We lived in a hostel, and then every morning we would take a ferry out to one of the islands on the reef, put on a wetsuit, and we would collect data through underwater surveys. The two surveys that we did are on the right side of the screen. The first one was called Coral Watch, and then the second was called Eye on the Reef. So Coral Watch, the one in the top right corner, that one monitors coral stress and the coral health. So with climate change, the ocean temperatures are rising and it's affecting coral's relationship. They have a symbiotic relationship with a certain type of algae. And this algae is what gives the color its pigment, and it provides the coral with food through photosynthesis. But when the water gets too warm, the coral ejects the algae from its tissue, and it in turn like starves the coral. And then if temperatures don't come down within a certain amount of time, the coral starves and in the end dies. But since the algae is what's providing it with its color, we using charts like this could indicate how stressed out the coral is. So we would dive down, look at the darkest part of a randomly selected piece of coral, and then the lightest part. We collect all this data, and we could get an overview of what a certain area looks like and if those corals are stressed out. And then the second survey that we did was called Eye on the Reef, and it just gave us a general overview of everything that was happening on the reef, and gave us an indication if anything was out of place. So with this, for 10 minutes, we would swim in a timed we would time it for 10 minutes, and we would swim in like a certain area and tally up whatever species we saw. If we saw a sea cucumber, we would tally it. If we saw a sea turtle, everything we saw, we would tally. And then after the 10 minutes, we would analyze the type of area it was in, and that like explains the presence of why those species were there or why certain species weren't. But also we were swimming in a sandy area and there weren't any sea cucumbers, or an area with a lot of algae and there's no sea turtles, like that could indicate that there's something up with that species, if there's an increase in a predator or a decrease in food. So we would send all of this data to the government, the Australian government, and then also like local universities and research group could access it. The reef is really big. It's like the size of Italy. So what we were seeing, the government wasn't seeing simultaneously. And then I don't know, this data enables time-effective action to minimize damage and support reef resilience, and then provide insight for management of activities on the reef and creating a long-term protection plan. We were also collecting data in public sites. So there's a lot of tourists. So we would monitor if there's any like damage actively happening on the reef so they could enact policies. So yeah, so that's what I did in Australia. So what am I going to use that for? I'm trying to click. Okay, so my next step, I'm forming my capstone project with everything that I learned and all the experiences I've had. And my goal is to bring awareness to the beauty of coral reefs and how critical it is to take care of our changing environment. So I am developing a collaborative lesson plan at the lower school, and I'm working with the science teachers there. And I'm going to teach a lesson to the 6th grade class this winter. Right now, it's going to be broken into 3 days. And so the first day is going to be a general introduction. I'm going to be teaching them pretty much like the basics of the ocean. They're 6th graders, so they already like learned a good amount, but I'm going to overview like different ecosystems, processes, and then threats, including coral bleaching and ocean acidification. And then I'm going to share with them like my personal experience. I'm going to show them all the footage that I gathered. And then we would wrap up that lesson with a Kahoot just to make sure that they absorbed like the information I was teaching them. And then the second day that I go down to the lower school, we are going to do a lab. One lab is going to be focused on ocean acidification. So with vinegar and salts, we would be playing with seashells in different acidity waters and seeing how the acidity and the changing pH affects the shells. And then the second one will be a coral bleaching online lab. I think I did a similar one with Mr. McGlynn when I was in climate change, but it allows you to see, you could play with like the temperatures and stuff of the water, the time scale, and you watch different types of coral bleach, and then you could also like see different ecosystems and different organisms disappearing as the coral disappears, which I think was like pretty eye-opening and like educational. And then the third day is like the wrap-up day. So it's like really important for me to like end on a positive note, because the topics that I'm teaching like aren't so happy. Like I'm talking about how ecosystems are being destroyed and like species are being lost. Like no one really wants to hear that. So I want to end it on a positive note. I want the kids to be inspired and want to look forward to the future and come up with solutions and not just like be sad about it. So the project that we're going to do is a poster project, and they have to think about how we can make a difference individually and collectively. So everyone's going to draw up a poster with what they think the best solution would be for the future to save our oceans. And yeah, so that's what I have as my capstone project. And I can't wait to share with everyone once I have it finalized and all finished. But that's what I've done in CSS so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Next up, we have Rebecca.
Hello, let me try to share my screen. Don't know if it will work. Sorry, I'm also a little. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if you guys probably saw in the intro Mr. McGlynn did, the video about our composting project, but I'm going to be talking about that workshop and then my capstone and a little bit more about composting and other stuff I've done in CSS. Let me see. So I'm a senior this year, and I've been doing CSS since I was a freshman in the winter term. So all the way up until like I was a freshman, I've wanted to do this and I've known I wanted to do it. And so it's really great to be able to bring some lower schoolers into a similar situation. So maybe they can start as soon as possible if they're interested. So as you guys probably saw in the documentary earlier, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the composting workshop, because it was really an eye-opening experience for me in Trinity and Victoria, and even probably Mr. McGlynn, because documentarians who filmed us were so kind, but also like trying to bridge the gap between us, and we were expecting to teach it to 6th, 7th, 8th graders, and teaching it to 4th graders, kind of a heavier topic like that. It was really interesting, but they knew a lot more than I expected. They really surprised me. So that was a really enjoyable experience. For those of you who don't know, me and Trinity are also the leaders of our environmental club, which, if CSS is more independent with an advisor, environmental club tries to bring together students in the school during the school day and after school to form activities that are going to happen mostly during this time. And our big plan kind of for the whole year is Earth Week, though we've been doing a lot this year more than Earth Week. We've been having weekly meetings. We do all sorts of crafts. We had a climate strike earlier in the year. That was really fun. We did recycled materials. We painted on them with some paint we got donated from the Alumni Association. Thank you, Miss Cadle. And then also the picture on the right is from an Earth Week activity from, I believe, 2022 or 2021, a few years ago. That's my mom in the photo and someone getting a sample. I think it's Nora. Shout out to Nora. But we did a water quality hike, walk, more like a walk to Toby's Creek Retention Basin. And because my mom is a master watershed steward for the Penn State Extension, she's able to show us a little bit about what she knows. So I don't just know about composting. I know a little bit about water quality too. So that's kind of fun. And then lastly, the thing that I've really enjoyed about CSS, as my fellow CSS people have mentioned, is these talks and panels. And it's really interesting to both talk, but also be on the listening side, and find inspiration for possible future careers that I might want to go into. For example, like when Mike Messersmith came in, like president of Oatly, that was really cool. And him being a SEM alum and everything. And then I wanted to talk about this. So this is going in my capstone. We had a few problems, and I find that in environmentalism and in CSS in general, there are problems. And a lot of the times you're just going to have to get around it. And that's the only way that you're going to get to a probable solution. So a few problems that I had during the brainstorming and executing process was first the actual blueprint. I wish I put a picture, I should have. But if you saw it, it was 4 quadrants, like a closed lid design. And while we were building it, me and Mr. McGlynn and everyone else who was building it with me, we were like, this isn't gonna work. We can't do this. This is too much. So we did two big compartments and an open design so you can get in there and shovel it really easily. But we have a wonderful, who will turn it? That's the next question. We didn't know. We were like, no one's going to want to turn it. And the Mets workers, who were wonderful, and I put it in the corner, but they were very cooperative and like open to the idea in general. But we didn't want to put an extra workload on someone who already had a job of their own. So we decided on a spreadsheet. Thank you to Mr. McGlynn for making that. But a lot of you guys probably have seen it. But if you're interested in joining it, you can let me know. But members like us and students, even my friends and also faculty, can sign up for a week. And when you sign up for a week, you get access to this spreadsheet. Every day you put on kind of the amount of compost, and then it calculates the amount of CO2 sequestration and reduction would be formed by you composting that waste instead of sending it to the landfill. And I talked to Dr. P, and she was open to the idea of maybe doing like a detention where instead of getting detention where you just sit there, you have to go turn the compost, but we'll see. She hasn't really gotten back to me that much on that. And then the final thing, which is still a mystery, is where will the actual compost go? And if anyone out there has a solution, please let me know, because we don't really know ourselves. But there are possibilities of, I know I've heard Mr. McGlynn talk about making a garden at SEM that we could then use the compost to put in, or donating it to the local community so people could have, it's really good compost. Like Mr. McGlynn has said, like every time he updates me on it, he's like, it's nice and hot, exactly what it's supposed to be, because that means all the organisms are heating up in there. So we'll see in that in the future. I think I got everything there. And then I have a little visual kind of how the building process went. So when we started, it was just, a lump of dirt. And we built a frame. We you know, and rebar into the ground. It was like the most, I don't know, handsy. Like I don't usually do work like this, like carpentry, I guess. And so it was really fun for me to kind of learn how to do it. And there's me and Christina in the last picture after like sweating and hurting ourselves with a staple gun. That staple gun was weirdly hard to use, but we finished and we were very happy with it, and it is now in use. And so that's been my time at CSS, and the actual capstone is in the works, like the poster itself, and it'll have all this information plus the graphs for the CO2 reduction. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. And last up, we have Bella.
Let me just share my screen quick. Hold on. Can you see it?
No, we can't see it yet.
Give me 1 second.
Yep, take your time.
It was weird earlier. I don't know what
Yeah.
it's doing. Let me try something different. It's not letting me share my screen for some reason. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. There,
Okay,
it's
can you see
working.
it now?
Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
So I'm Bella Fox, and I'm a junior here at SEM. I've been
Bella,
a
sorry, real quick, you're showing it's not showing your presentation though.
Oh, I don't know what it's doing then. Give me 1 second.
It's showing the Zoom, yeah.
Give me 1 second. It keeps. Let me see if I could open it on Google if it does something
Okay.
different. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, you got it now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Bella Fox, and I'm a junior here at SEM. I've been a CSS member since my end of my freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year, and currently I'm taking the climate change courses, which is taught by Mr. McGlynn, and I'm in like the final stage of planning my capstone. So in the climate science courses that I'm taking, there's 3 electives offered, which is Climate Change 1, which is taught in the fall, Climate Change 2, which is taught in the winter, and Industry and Climate, which is taught in the spring. I just finished up Climate Change 1, and I'm in Climate Change 2 now. And in Climate Change 1, we talked a lot about like the mechanics of how climate change really works and the factors of climate change. And then later on in the term, we talked about how climate change affects certain animals and species and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed that part of the class, and I'm excited to see what is in this next term. So it's a great opportunity for students, both participating in the environmental club and CSS, as well as students who don't participate in either. My biggest thing is it helps junior students plan for their capstone. Coming into my junior year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for my capstone. I had a lot of ideas, but coming out of Climate Change 1, it kind of I kind of focused on 2 main topics, which I'm choosing between now. But it really helped me narrow down my ideas for my own capstone project. But it also puts in perspective for a lot of people who don't know much about climate change, which I think is very important because sometimes it's not the biggest priority for people. So I think when we offer classes like this, it's really important to learn about what's going on around us and what's happening just like recently. So I was part of the fall tree planting, which I was really excited about. I wasn't able to do it in my sophomore year, but it was on November 9th, and it was open to the entire school, faculty and the student body, so not just the CSS students or the environmental club students. It was to better our campus environmentally, and it continues our tradition to installing 10 new plants each fall. We planted 9 blueberry bushes and 1 honey locust tree, and the blueberry bushes hopefully will be used next year in the dining hall. It was super fun, and I was really excited to see a lot of people come out. Um, a lot of people I don't think were from environmental club. I knew a few CSS students who came out, but mainly it was just it was really good to see our campus really supporting climate change and stuff like that. And this summer, I took a trip to Wyoming and Montana to visit Glacier National Park and Yellow National Park. And originally, I didn't go out there with like CSS in mind or a capstone project in mind. But as soon as I got there, we noticed that wildfires were kind of taking over the national parks, especially Glacier National Park in Wyoming. Every day we were out there, it was kind of hard to see and it was hard to breathe. And coming back and just being in climate change one, it kind of put it all together for me. We really didn't see many animals, and being in the class and talking about stuff like that just really made me wonder how what we're doing is affecting not just where we live. Like, I live in Pennsylvania, so what I'm doing, it's not just affecting people who live here, but it might affect people who live pretty much everywhere, and not just people, animals as well. So that is kind of one of my possible capstone ideas. And talking about capstones, I am doing my capstone planning right now. Like I said earlier, climate change one just really helped me a lot with narrowing down what I think I want to do. And I'm really excited to see what the climate change class I'm in now, Climate Change 2, has to offer on my final capstone project. I also think just the size of the classes and the open discussion and people, like Hayden said, people teaching me and me teaching people in the class, that also really helped to motivate me to finish my capstone. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you to all the students for presenting tonight and to Mr. McGlynn for presenting as well. We have 10 minutes now for questions, so if you want to type in the chat or raise your hand and ask out loud, please feel free to ask questions to any one of our panelists. Yes, Nancy? You're muted, Nancy. There you go.
This is a general question, probably for you or Mr. McGlynn. What percentage of the students get to participate in something like this, a capstone project of this magnitude?
So we have 16 members in CSS right now. I believe the STEM concentration, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, has, forgive me if I'm wrong here, John, around 25, and then the Global Studies and Humanities program has, I think, around 12 or 13 right now. So this is presented to the kids as a program that they can elect into, but they also understand that it's an additional undertaking with a higher work expectation. So when they graduate, they feel really great about what it is that they do. So it's definitely self-selected, but I'd say about, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10% of our students are in an academic concentration, and maybe Mrs. Lewis could back me up on the numbers on that one.
Actually, I was just trying to find my spreadsheet to answer that question, but I think Mike is right on track. I think those numbers are pretty accurate.
Thank you.
But everyone does have the opportunity to participate in it. We open our doors to anyone who wants to do the work.
Good.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Kersey?
How supportive are these concentrations by faculty who are not involved in them? And do they feel the students who are in the concentrations are missing out on, the courses that are not part of the concentrations?
Could you rephrase the last part of that question?
Yeah. Do the faculty who are not involved in any of these concentrations feel that the students who choose to be involved may be missing out on some of the courses that they teach that are not part of the concentration?
So to clarify, the climate change series of classes is an elective series. So sometimes unfortunately, like a lot of our CSS students don't actually get to take that series of classes because they're taking AP Bio or statistics. I would say like a third of our kids have been enrolled in our climate science series of classes, maybe even as little as a quarter, but students could never touch any of our science or anything that's specific to climate science and still be able to pull off the concentration. As for the adults, the faculty mentors, I think that they feel that I felt extremely supported in a lot of the work. I know that Dr. Nerozzi and other teachers have been really great mentors for CSS projects that I have not really had my hand in nearly as much. So it feels like a real communal effort here with our teachers and faculty, and I really appreciate that because I'm certainly not an expert in everything environmental, but we can find someone who is. And oftentimes our CSS students will find mentors, and we'll help them find mentors outside of the classroom too, or outside of the SEM walls.
Good, thank you.
I was just gonna say something really quick to that question, is that I took ceramics this fall with Mrs. Ayers, and she is an art teacher, and I think she might be one of the advisors for STEAM, because like the art in STEAM as the A, but I'm not 100% sure. She's not really, I know Mr. Item is the main concentration head. And she told me she was dying for someone to come to her and help them with their capstone. She's like, I'm just waiting for someone to come to me and talk to me about how like the chemistry of ceramics is, like how the molecules stack on each other. Like, so she's not like, someone didn't come to her. She's just waiting for someone to come to her. Like, she can't wait. I feel like most of the teachers feel, if not indifferent towards it, but very like a little supportive to very supportive is usually how I would see other teachers who aren't really involved as much.
Dr. Nerozzi, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to add to this answer?
Yeah, hold on a second. Am I here?
You're there.
Yeah, I did just want to add 2 points. Nancy mentioned how many kids are involved in programs, and the numbers are accurate. But there's a lot of students who do research and projects that are not affiliated with the concentration. So I would just like to leave the audience with the idea that we want to support students who want to do independent work. And some students want to take on a concentration and go all the way to the finish line for something on their graduation diploma. But for other students, that's not as an important a thing, but that doesn't mean that they can't do research. And we've been doing research for quite a while at Wyoming Seminary and through Science Research Group and other endeavors. Colleen, for example, is another faculty member who's been doing projects with students for some time. So I just wanted to add the color that there are lots of different avenues for students to do projects here, and they're welcome. In Science Research Group, we do have some CSS students. We have some STEM. We have one humanities, but half the group is unaffiliated. So it's a mixed bag. I love working with the kids. Like Mike said, it's a lot of fun to work with the students. And I'll take them whatever their affiliation or their level of commitment is. So that's fine. So I just wanted to add that. That's all. All right.
Thank you. Kurt has his hand up.
It's not a question, but more of an offer. So I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. McGlynn and with Nicole and with others who are on the chat. And I work in sustainability, and I graduated from SEM in 2002. And so some of your projects, I've had the privilege to be able to work with them, like with carbon footprint analyses or with composting. And so if you have students, Mike, or any of the current students who are doing the work that we heard about tonight, if you'd like to, or if you need like a second opinion on things, just let me know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Adam Ruderman.
Because I couldn't figure out how to put my hand.
I saw you.
So this is really just a comment. I mean, I'm very impressed by the breadth of the capstone projects that were presented tonight. in a program that is so relatively new to the school. So I think it's a tribute to the program. I think it's exciting, and I look forward to, I could think of a whole host of future projects that I'd love to see students participate in. But this sounds like a really good round of projects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have time for one more question or comment if anyone has anything. No? All right, well, thank you, Mr. McGlynn, and thank you to the students who presented tonight. This was recorded, so I will send the recording to everybody in case you want to go back and watch anything. And Kurt, if you want to reach out to me, I can get you in touch with any of the students to make sure that you guys can connect. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.